Um, oh, I guess, do we need to get the YouTube turned on there?
You're good to go.
Is that what he said? Good to go?
Yes.
Okay, we've got Randy, Andy, and I.
Yes, and Mark should be joining shortly.
And Mark's trying to get on. Okay. All righty. Welcome everybody to this month's Power Board meeting. I know we're still kind of over the place. This meeting we're all over. So, do we have any other visitors or anything that we need to?
I don't see anybody on there.
No one else is on there. All right. Okay. Did you get a chance to see the minutes? Any questions on those?
Nope, they look good.
Oh, yep, they look good to me too.
I'm sorry. Wait a second. I need to do the agenda. I meant to do the agenda. Did everyone have a chance to look at the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Questions, comments, or concerns on that?
No.
Nope.
Okay. If someone give me a motion for that one.
I'll go ahead and motion to approve the agenda today.
I'll second that.
So Andy made the motion and Randy seconded it. So Andy, would you start us off on the vote?
Yep. Palmer, aye.
Randy?
Meyer, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. All right, now I can do the minutes. Now that we have an agenda, we can do the minutes. So did you guys look through the minutes? Have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I looked through them and I don't have any questions.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, so motion to pass the minutes for last month's meeting.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that
Okay.
motion.
So Randy motioned and Andy seconded. So Randy, would you start us on the vote?
Meyer, aye.
Palmer,
Andy?
aye. Palmer, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. And Dinsmore, aye. All right. Sorry, I'm kind of. Oh, and Mark's here.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
All right. Oh, those are the minutes. Sorry, I opened the wrong PDF. Okay, so Rick, regular business operations and generation report and update.
Okay. Again, tonight's will be a fairly easy, straightforward meeting. We're working on a couple things that we hope to get to you soon, but they're not quite ready to present to you on the new standards or updated standards, and then the pole attachment. And we'll report a little bit on those, but they're not quite ready to present to you. First item I had is Jeanette, who's been with the city for 27 years, will retire in 2 weeks. And so
Oh, wow.
her luncheon, retirement luncheon, is on February 14th from 11:30 to 1:30 here at the Gen Plant. So if anybody's able to drop by and wish her well, that would be great. So kind of coupled with that, we're just completing the hiring process for that. Created a shift in the department a little bit, and we'll be hiring a new person that will work with Mike on the GIS and Jake on the generation, and he'll start on February 14th. So we're having one leaving and one coming in. We continue to work with the new developments, and Jeremy's been working with us with Sitla to get the new substation site up by exit 13. And We actually have a meeting scheduled for next week to go over some more of those details. It's moving along well. And so hopefully we'll have that site secured in the not too distant future there. Another thing that you may or may not have heard of is that there'll be a new exit on Main Street. They're calling it Exit 11. And we had a meeting last week with their consultants and engineers. And actually, you know, I was concerned about how much it would impact our substation or the transmission lines. And at least the preliminary information they showed us, it's not as bad as I had feared. They aren't final yet, so they're doing their best to kind of weave between the poles and other utilities to try to minimize those costs. So that'll be, a continuing process. I think they're shooting for mid-April to have something pretty definitive that we could start designing anything that impacts us. It appears there'll be some underground that we'll have to redo and maybe a couple transmission poles. Again, it's not as bad as I had feared. It's a tight little area there. So, and then we're starting our fiscal year 2023 budget process. So we'll be working on that this month, and I'll have a meeting with Jeremy and Brian in accounting later this month on that. Our peak for January was 18.4 megawatts. The pricing for wholesale power continues to stay unusually high for this time of year. Looking back, unfortunately, I think it's going to be the norm going forward. In fact, I was looking just before I got on the call, and pricing for hours like 5, 6, and 7 are between $75 and $95 megawatt hour. Like we talked last month, typically this time of year we're in the 30s or 40s. And so that continues to be a challenge going forward. As far as projects, I'm going to share my screen. The biggest one we've been working on is Cactus Lane. Steve, can you let me share?
You got it.
Okay, can you see that picture of the pooler?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So this is up on the north end of the project where they intercepted an existing conduit and cable run. We installed this new piece of, we call it a vault or sectionalizer. The crews do a really good job of, they saved all the gravel where they did the excavation and restored it back to nice condition there. This saved us from having to replace probably close to 1,000 feet of cable. And it's really expensive right now. So we'll look at some of the other pictures of poles. Again, the pole on the left is the old pole. In fact, it's gone now since I took this picture, and the new one's on the right. And again, the old poles are still there to hold up the communications. We've had those discussions on several other projects previously. So when we get out of the area, then we'll work with them on getting those transferred. And this was another vault they had to set again to minimize the amount of new cable we had to pull. And this is towards the south end. Down here, we actually changed the locations of the poles 30 or 40 feet, so they're not in the same. So the old pole's there on the right, and the new pole's on the left here. Just more evenly spaced out the spans in that area. And this was not part of Cactus, but just another pole change out that they did. This was just up from the city office. So that's been taking up a good chunk of the crew's time since we met. I would say the project's about 60 to 75% complete at this point. They'll right now they're feeding the one phase that's still hot from the south, and then they'll using that vault that we looked at there on the picture, they'll backfeed it from the north and then do some work on the south end. And hopefully within the next week to 10 days, they'll have that pretty well wrapped up. And then right after that, we'll be working with Public Works. They have 3 new wells up off of the Grapevine trail that they're working on getting installed, and we'll be doing the conductor installation and transformer installation for them. On our renewable solar installations, I reported last month that November and December were very high. November we had 26, and December we had 20. January we had 7, which is more typical. I think there's an end of the year rush trying to get tax credits and those kind of things. So we were able to secure 40 more meters that will work, bidirectional meters that will work with the solar. So that'll buy us a little more time. We're still waiting on orders that we placed in May and July to come in. It just seems like each month they tell us it'll be February 17th, and then I'm sure this month it may be March 17th. So hopefully they'll show up soon. We've got another 60 or so on order, but they're just, for some reason, they're having trouble with that one particular type of meter. The underground standards, the last time that was updated was in 2015, and so we're doing a pretty extensive review and update on that. I've been through the text. Nikki's working on the text part, and we still have the drawings to go through. And once we get that in a good draft form, we'll present it to the power board and then eventually the council for approval. Our pole attachment policy, we engaged UFS, which is the same company that helped us with the rate and impact fees, to do a analysis on what the connection fee or the attachment fee should be. They sent that late last week, and we're reviewing that and then also working on the document that will go with that. Other things the crew and department completed or participated in this month was every year we have to do tortoise training because we do have a couple lines that go up into the habitat. They actually make it pretty easy now. They do it online, and it works pretty well, but everybody up there needs to have training and reminders of where to look for the tortoises and what to do if we do see one. The tree trimming, which is we've contracted out with B.A. Robinson. They have all but the trees at one address done, and they're waiting on the people to move their cars so they can get back in there. So basically our tree trimming for this year is completed. Unless somebody else got calls, I think it's worked really well. We have the same company, so I think people are used to them. And we really don't have too much squawking anymore like we used to when I first started. So they do a great job, and that so all that they'll be doing from here on out is we'll usually have a onesie twosie tree here or there that we have them come in and trim as different issues come up. The crews took down the Christmas tree, exchanged the banners out. We had our main department safety meeting this month was on fire safety, and the fire department came and helped us with that. They always do a great job, and we appreciate their help. We worked through some COVID issues. Several people had COVID or were exposed with family members. So we were down a few people here and there, but we worked through it. And I'm sure just about everybody on this call has had it or knows somebody that has. So fortunately, everybody's doing well and no big issues that we're aware of on that front. Trailhead Apartments and Bluffview Commons Apartments, we energized buildings on both of those projects in the last month. And Jake on the substation, he does the monthly substation checks and hasn't found any significant issues. Again, he's working on some projects on the SCADA to be ready for this upcoming summer. And one thing he did do, we now have signs at each of our substation that gives the substation name, phone numbers to call. So if there was something that somebody noticed in the area, they have an easy reference of who to call and what the location and the address. So it would improve on response time if we ever had those kind of issues. As far as outages go, it was a good month. We had one transformer get hit, and that was changed out. So not a equipment failure or anything. It seems like sometimes we go through spells where people like running into cars or transformers and switches and poles. So that's basically what the department's been doing this last month. Any questions on that before I move on to UAMPS?
No questions here.
With the cost of the power being so high right now, how are we doing with our budget? Are we stressing it out, or are we in good shape there?
Well, yes, it definitely is putting some strain on that. In fact, we'll be taking a budget amendment or revision to the council next week. And on the UAMPS portion, it's basically about $1 million that we'll increase the budget on, which is about 10% increase. Fortunately, we do have the PCA, the power cost adjustment, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. As those costs have come up, that PCA has also increased. So that helps cover some of those costs. And then we've, I guess, on the positive side of things, between growth and, well, primarily on growth, the revenues are up as well, approximately about the same amount as far as what we're projecting. So it's definitely something we're looking at in this upcoming summer and the next budget year. We're going to be looking at that very closely. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a concern. It's, as we've discussed lots of times, it's the wholesale power cost is like 2/3 of our overall budget. So it has a significant impact, but so far, I think I'm hoping to be able to weather the storm. I'll report on a couple of things in UAMPS that there's a couple of projects that have or won't be here this summer that we had hoped. And so that'll add some of the pressure as well, at least for this coming summer. That help, Randy?
Yeah, and it sounds like you've got a plan in place to the cost of inflation isn't going away. It seems, and it's across the board on all the industries and fronts. So
yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone, and that's actually a good segue into some of the UAMPS items. We're starting we're actually kind of in the middle of the UAMP's budget process. Their fiscal year starts April 1st. And they've presented the preliminary numbers, and virtually all the projects have some upward pressure on budget costs, some more than others. Transmission costs are up a little bit. Again, it's kind of trickling down to hitting those budgets. So unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of relief on those projects. Most of them aren't huge increases, but it's definitely something that we're keeping an eye on. I'll just quickly go through the various UAMPS projects, and if you got questions, stop and holler. On the Central St. George project, which is the local area transmission project, Rocky Mountain had some questions on some conduits needed for the remedial action scheme that they're installing, and the UAMPS engineer met with them on site, and they found the conduits they needed. So that project's remaining on track to be in service this summer. We did hold, I'm going to call it kind of a regional meeting. The project participants, ourselves, Hurricane, Santa Clara, and St. George, as well as some of the UAMP staff, and then Mike Velarde, the ICPE engineer. We had a meeting last week in St. George offices to kind of go over system studies and some of the concerns or issues we have on the project. And one of those is the transformer capacity at River and Skyline. We have enough capacity, and even if we lose a transformer, we still have enough capacity, but it would take an outage to get things moved around to the capacity we have. And so Mike will be presenting a recommendation of how we can remedy that, and so we wouldn't be exposed to that same degree at those two locations. And go ahead. Somebody have a question? Okay. And they're working on some agreement issues. The original joint operating agreement with Rocky Mountain, there's some concerns there, and so we'll be working with UAMP staff on approaching Rocky Mountain on some of the concerns we have on that project. Couple other things associated with that. The next major improvement that Rocky Mountain has planned for the area is energizing one of the 4 transmission lines from Central to St. George at 345,000 volts, and then installing another transformer at the St. George sub. And then they're also evaluating the possibility of bringing a 345 kV line roughly down I-15 from Cedar City and back into Purgatory. And that's a longer term project, but I think it's something that will have to happen to keep the reliability to the county where it needs to be. There's one, Walmart is going to be doing some expansion here in Washington, and they have that large retaining wall on, I'm going to call it the east side of their property. And they'll be making some changes to that, which impacts at least potentially one structure of UAMP's transmission line that is our backfeed. And so we're working with UAMPS and Walmart to get those issues resolved and come up with a plan to move forward. The Nebo Payson project, which is the gen plant there on the north exit in Payson. It's been online, it's been running really well since they did their control system upgrade in October with no significant issues, which has been great. And they've been running 16 to 20 hours a day on average. Little report on what, from a budget standpoint, the water source for the cooling towers for that project is the sewer effluent. And so they have to treat the water, and some of the chemicals needed to treat that water are increasing, and again, having a little upward pressure on the cost of that plant. One interesting thing on that project, we did approve a small study budget for GE to evaluate to what extent we could maybe use hydrogen at that plant in the future, as it'll probably be a mixed with the natural gas. And so they'll study the unit that we have, what could be done. Again, looking to the future where carbon emissions are going to be scrutinized. So again, trying to get ahead of the game on that one. The heat recovery project up in Vail, I reported last month that they'd, we had the generator problem, the oil leak. They sent it off for repair, brought it back, installed it, and it had vibration issues. So they had to take it back out and send it back to the repair facility. The good news is it was brought back mid-January, and it's been running really well since then. So that will be good to have that project back online, particularly for the upcoming summer. On the government and public affairs project, probably the biggest thing there is trying to figure out what opportunities there might be in the Build Back Better plan or bill if that gets through the Senate, and particularly on the climate issues. And Mike Squires had reported that, anything from changing the size of the bill, they may move the climate items to separate legislation or through a budget process, or maybe nothing will happen at all. So he's keeping a close eye on that. Some of the upcoming projects, solar projects, the Red Mesa project, I reported last month, and it's still in that same time frame. It shifted from July operation date to November, December, due to they are going to claim a force majeure in the contract on a supply chain that they can't get the panels. They have started some of the site work as was reported, but they're anticipating an issue on getting the panels in. The steel solar project that was originally scheduled for December of 2022, the end of this year, is still on track. And so that's the good news on that one. And it looks like there'll be an opportunity that we can increase our entitlement share on that project as well, with the second part coming online before the summer of 2023. So once that increase in capacity gets worked out, that'll come back through the power board and council for approval of that updated power purchase agreement. And on that project, they have started the site prep as well. The Enchant Project, which is the San Juan coal plant in New Mexico. UAMPS has members that are in that project, and that'll be shutting down at the end of June. And there's the outfit called Enchant that is buying the plant and putting carbon capture on that facility. Originally, they had hoped that we'd be able to take power under the Enchant umbrella this July, but it's looking, because of contractual issues, that'll probably be November of 2022. And so the Enchant and the Red Mesa are the two projects I referenced before we had hoped to have on. I mean, they both have good price points, but it doesn't look like that they'll be there for us this summer. And so UAMPS continues to finalize the power purchase agreement. The basic terms are agreed to, but the details they're still hammering out. And then Enchant has to work with the current owners of that facility to get that finalized. And that's really where the timing issue is coming in. Another potential future project is the Muddy Creek, which is it'll be about 2 times the size of Vale, but the same basic technology. And that's moving along. The landowner lease is basically done. They're going to want to sign that concurrently with the host agreement with Kern River. And Mason, the UAMP's attorney, said they're very close to finalizing that with Kern River. They have done some of the initial back pressure study work that's needed for that project. They still have some more to do. And anticipated COD will be about 18 to 24 months once they get the go ahead from UAMP. So we probably won't see that till fall of 2024, early 2025, possibly. We've been looking at because of those couple projects, we'd always planned on doing a small summer purchase. Those 2 projects that won't be there will increase what we need to buy for this upcoming summer. UAMPS is keeping an eye out right now. Pricing is about $250 a megawatt hour, which is 25 cents a kilowatt hour. So they're cautiously optimistic it'll drop down, but we'll probably end up in about the $200 range, which is about $50 a megawatt hour more than last year. So wish I had better news on that, but again, as resources get retired, the hydro situation isn't helping. There'll be less hydro available in the West. And again, it just keeps giving, doesn't do anything to help lower the prices. It tends to put pressure on the upward side. I think UAMP's pretty well, there were some issues with the day ahead and real-time pricing for the pool project. I think they've got those worked out where basically all members in UAMPS will be for the pool pricing, experiencing or be able to buy or sell power at the same price, and one not having an advantage over the other. I alluded on the Colorado River hydro project. Right now they're predicting lower output. So in turn, you have the same fixed costs on a lot of things. So those prices will be a little bit higher. That doesn't directly affect us a lot because we have a very small amount. However, it does affect the overall pricing in the area. And our wind projects for December and January actually had some really good months. The Horse Butte actually had a capacity factor of 65%. Normally it's in the low to mid 20s. 30% is really high. So it was really windy in Idaho Falls those couple months. And then Pleasant Valley in Wyoming, its capacity factor was up to about 54%. So a lot of wind. I wish we could schedule that wind for the summer months. It would be even more helpful at that point. And last but not least is the carbon-free project. And I think you probably get these talking points. And this project continues to move forward, making progress. We'll just go through a few things. And this is the slide deck that UAMP sends out that are available for public information. On the new scale side of things, they are on track to complete their standard plant design submittals with the NRC, and they're on target to submit that at the end of this year. And they're one of those standard plant designs is the 6 module configuration that UAMPS will be doing their COLA and project on. So have got those synced up to where the review process of the standard design approval will make, when UAMPS goes through, a much simpler process, because they had already seen it. And we're basically saying we're using that standard plant design, and then here's the site specific differences. One of the important things that'll be coming up, if I remember right, I believe this is in August. This is due the class 3 estimate that they're doing with Floor, working on the balance of plant design and starting to refine the cost estimate for the project. And they're reporting that it's slightly behind schedule and slightly under budget. So, but expect to be able to make that up and still keep it on target for August. On the COLA side of things, they've been working on the borings, and there's some pictures here of the site. It's on track, and they continue to engage the Idaho National Lab as well as the NRC as appropriate to make sure they're up to speed and comfortable with what's going on. And that looks like the Idaho I remember this time of year, so nice and white. But they were able to get through the drilling. There's still a little bit of work. Obviously, the snow and ice make travel a little more difficult. But they completed all the well drilling on January 12th. And so the drilling side of that field investigation is complete. And I honestly can't tell you exactly what this suspension testing and the other seismic activities, but they're able to do that during the winter season. So, and they'll wrap that up next month and then demobilize the personnel for a period of time from the site. And again, the engineering, based on that information, they're starting to, do the engineering on preliminary engineering on the projects. To help support the COLA process. They did hire another employee to lead out on the licensing on the COLA process on this. I haven't had a chance to meet him, but he'll be working with Sean on getting the COLA put together. They're getting close to actually having an official operator or a company that would work as the operator for the plant. They're in negotiations and hope to be able to officially release that public soon on that. And the key point on getting them involved at this point in time is it will help refine the costs associated with operating and maintaining the plant. And that's my understanding is a lot of the other plants, they wait to engage the operator until much later. But I think this is a really good thing to get that input and get those costs refined as best as possible as we move forward. So they're, again, working on the estimate and the COLA we've already talked about, finishing up those site activities. And then they're working on the next level of the contract for the modules, which would be with New Scale, and the actual construction with Floor, and then with the operator that hopefully they'll be able to, I think they'll be able to release the name publicly by next month. on the subscription side, which is where we would wish everybody would, the ones that have signed the letter of intent, their issue now isn't really with the project itself. They're working with BPA and Idaho Power and others and Pacific Core to get the transmission service from the facility to their systems. And that's the big stumbling block or obstacle or challenge they're working through right now. With it's Clark County and goodness, who's the other one? And Grant are the two. And between those two, they have about 225 megawatts of letter intent capacity. So Doug with UAMPS seems optimistic that they can work through these issues. And UAMPS filed this transmission service request in the project's behalf to be able to get it there. And so that starts another process to evaluate that transmission service. They did do a tour with 10 utilities that haven't currently participated, or I'm trying to think of the right word, potentially interested utilities. They did a tour in early January, and 5 of those have also expressed interest. So they're working on letters of intent and getting them hopefully willing to sign up on that. So that's the CFPP and really my UAMPS report. Like I say, this month's kind of short and sweet. I don't know if you have any questions.
One question. My brother told me about this plant that's going on over near Milford, where they're drilling a deep hole for the geothermal. You know about that?
I do not. I know that area does have some geothermal sources, and there are
It's
plants.
called Forge, Forge. Just looking at it online here, but
No, I'm not familiar with that particular one. So
okay.
I can't say much on that one.
Yeah, it looks like that might be a source if it proves to be what they hope it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's some there by Cove Fort and that whole area. There are some geothermal plants in operation and have been for a while.
That's cool.
One other question I had, I don't know if there's any items of concern that you're aware of that we should be following on or working on. If something comes up, let us know, or things that you think we should be doing or we're not doing. I would appreciate input.
Yeah, I don't have any items of concern.
As I say, I'm not hearing anything. I mean, the typical people think we're higher in power rate than everybody else, but that's the only thing I'm hearing.
Okay. And I guess that statement's not necessarily wrong either. So that's just kind of where we're at. So unfortunately, I would love to be able to.
Well, it's the typical. I think it's the typical, you're never comparing apples to apples.
An interesting point on that. There, one of the big developers in the city, we had a meeting with them on some issues, and he's moved down from Oregon, and he lives in Green Springs area. He commented he couldn't believe how low our rates were. So it was a little refreshing to hear that.
It's all relative, yeah.
So yeah, he set up there. They're the upper teens, right around 20 cents. So yeah,
Wow.
so he was just tickled pink at how cheap the power was here on our system. So like you said, I've had people from California tell us the same kind of thing. So it is relative, but we got to cover our costs, and that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Rick. Are there any other questions?
Just a reminder, March will be in person.
Oh, not this month. Next month.
No, Mike, we'll catch you in a month.
And we will, I'm sure Steve will be able to accommodate that. We'd keep Zoom capability for those that might have a need. But yeah, we are shooting to meet together next month.
Okay, good.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us and all the information shared. Motion to adjourn.
I'll
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so Randy made the motion. Andy said, "Oh wait, who did make it? My phone didn't show."
I think it was me.
Okay, Mark. Mark made the motion. Now he popped up there. Mark made it, and Andy seconded it. Is that correct?
Sounds good.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Mark, do you want to start us on the vote then?
How's her eye?
Andy,
Palmer, aye.
Randy,
Meyer, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. So we will see everybody next month, and hope we'll see everybody's faces instead of over Zoom.
Okay, well,
Sounds
thank
good.
you, everyone.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Something comes
Sounds
up,
great. Thank you. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
Recording stopped.